All right. Welcome to the Rest Art Pod. We're not just doing a restart, but we're getting some rest art. We're going to start off with a great bingo, little rest art bingo. Are you ready?
I'm
Yeah,
ready.
to reply, yeah. Definitely.
All right. So on your screens, you see a couple of things that you can do to get some rest art. So take a minute, um, look at the different choices, see what you do on a regular basis, and we'll just take about 15 seconds and we'll come back. So as you're looking, you can see what things stand out to you, what you would like to do more of, what you already do a lot of, that you're like, hey, I'm definitely good at this, or I wish I could do a little bit better with this. All right. So, what did you think? What were some things that you like, hey, I do this on a daily basis, or oh, man, I wish I could do this a little bit more often?
Yeah,
Um,
for
no,
go
no,
ahead,
go, go.
Shade.
No,
Are you sure? Should I start?
no,
Okay, I'll
go,
start.
go.
That
Yeah.
was so cool, by the way, the animation and the graphics. It's like it was an awesome, yeah, it's an awesome way to kick things off.
Mhm.
I would say for me, I try to do like the yoga and the stretching. I I love yoga. I played basketball for a lot of years and just wound up in my mid 20s, just all of a sudden like having a lot of injuries and not really understanding what was going on, with my body because I felt like, oh man, I'm still young, but why am I in pain all the time?
Mhm.
Doing the things that I love, like trying to play basketball or exercise, and that's when I kind of got introduced to yoga and just developed a practice, and now it's something that I think it's great exercise. Like it keeps my body feeling great. It helps me, play sports and continue to be active. So that definitely jumped out to me.
Yeah, it's great that you mentioned that because that's actually an active way to have physical rest. So it's being active while having rest, which goes into just because you're resting doesn't mean that you're sleeping. You can rest in many different ways. So how about for you today?
For me, first of all, I have to comment on Anthony playing basketball because I played basketball when I was in high school too. So that just got me so excited. And after
Basketball.
basketball, what side?
I
What
was
stood
never
out for
skilled in
me?
basketball.
Hey, it's okay. It's the desire to want to be skilled that matters, you know? um, for me, what is it? Actually, yoga, which is funny because Anthony said the same thing. So I feel like I'm just repeating what he's saying. But I got into yoga like at the beginning of the pandemic, and it was just like a great way to rest and restart, and also just like focus. So that was a huge one for me. And then meditation in the form of like praying, like I feel like that's another form of meditation. And so that is a huge stress relief for me as well because it just helps me unburden. And then walks because I took a walk today, so it just seemed appropriate. Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. For me, like I love to go walking. Like sometimes I just walk for miles and be like, oh man, now I gotta go walk all the way back because
Yeah.
like sometimes you just get lost in that. I wish
Mhm.
I would do yoga or stretching more.
Mhm.
I really enjoy it, but I haven't done it on my own. I've always done it like with an instructor or someone
Mhm.
like that. But I want to get into it on my own. I bought a yoga mat and I need to start using
That's a
it.
good start. Yeah, there's this app called Asana Rebel,
Okay.
and I think there's like a fee per year, and it's the greatest thing ever. It's got like videos, and it tells you exactly how to get into each position, and it's like a little community, So if
Awesome.
you're ever thinking about it, yeah,
Yeah, I'll check it out and I'll make sure I'll add it to the resources when we release this.
for sure.
Awesome. That's
One
dope.
one thing that I wanted to do more of that I saw on that list that I thought was super important was unplugging.
Mm,
I feel like I do a really
Yeah.
bad job of that. Or, like I'll somewhere in my mind I'll be like, oh, I know I need to take a break from my screens or whatever, and then I just don't follow through. I'll just be like find myself like after an entire day, an entire night, like still plugged in
yeah.
and just be like, what happened?
Yeah,
Mm.
like I get trapped. Like I'll be going into my phone for one thing and then end up on Instagram. I'd be like, how did I get
Dangerous.
here?
So dangerous. Yeah.
Like it'll be to the point where I'm like stuck in my phone, like looking at my apps, like what was I looking for?
Yeah.
And
It's
it's
funny
like,
because like that was the same for me today. Like Anthony, I couldn't unplug today. And I was just like, because you just think, okay, just one more thing, just one more thing. I'm almost done. And then it's like, and then you find yourself on Instagram and then you forget how you got there. And then you just, yeah, totally. Totally agree.
awesome. So today's episode is linked to the first key. So my name is, or I go by LuKEY, loose leaf. So I call it LuKEY number one. Get it? Key? No? Okay.
Like the key, the major key.
Right,
Got it.
right.
Got it. Got it.
So
I'm
Lukey.
with the same page. I'm with you.
thank you. So there are three vital keys. And the first is be intentional. So number one, what we'll talk about today is being intentional.
Love
Awesome.
it. Nice.
All right.
Your
So,
graphics game is top notch, by the way.
thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it. All thanks to StreamYard.
Ooh, shout out
Love it.
StreamYard.
Yeah, shout out to
Love
StreamYard.
it.
So I have what I call the four questions of being intentional. So I'll just ask these questions and just however you apply them to your life or have applied it to your life, you can just share something for our viewers to maybe encourage them through obstacles or anything that they might be going through. So the first one, the first question that I recommend that you ask is, why do I desire to fulfill this? So when you're being intentional, you can't skip this question because it's like your desire to fulfill something, there comes a need to complete it. There wouldn't be anything that will stop you from doing it. I find myself getting stuck in projects and I'm like, why am I taking so long? It's because my desire to fulfill it wasn't there. So, have you ever had a situation where either one way or the other, whether you didn't have the desire to fulfill it or you having the desire to fulfill something?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think maybe some people who are listening out there have a similar personality type to mine, but I'm one of these people where if I put something on a list, I have to cross it out. And so I'll just find myself kind of compulsively working or compulsively doing something and feeling like it's the most important thing in the world and like I have to do it. And sometimes not understanding why.
Mm,
Why am why do I actually want to do this? How is this connected with what I find meaningful or a higher level goal that I've set for myself? And so I really like the way that you lay that question out there because I feel like the personality type like mine, I can be so compulsive about just wanting to do whatever is put on my plate or answer whatever email is sent to me or like respond to whatever notification that I see pop up. But if I take a step back and ask myself, like, why am I desiring to actually fulfill this thing? Like, I think it would help me be more intentional about saying no to some things and prioritizing other things, which I would say that's a struggle for me personally.
For sure. I actually resonated that resonated with me quite a bit. I think the biggest thing that I'm still learning is, um, how do I put it? Like, not everything needs to be done right away. And I think that, like, for me, that transcends through work and personal. And because sometimes I do have a good reason to do it, and it is important. And like, I'm a list person too, so I have a lot of lists. Um, but I'm realizing that not everything has to be done in that moment. Like, not everybody needs to be responded to right away, whether it's like a text from my mom or a bestie. And sometimes it can just be so overwhelming because, you know, you have work and then you have your personal life. And it's like, why am I, you know, like, I want to fulfill all these things. I want to get back to people. I want to do the things I said I would do at work. But then I have to prioritize and like, okay, what's really important? Because I feel like that helps me feel like, okay, I know why I'm doing this thing now. Like, you know what I mean? And I can put my effort into it. And then when I get to the other thing, I know I'm doing that thing now. And I can, um, I guess, just like, I don't know what the word is, but you know what I'm saying. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I totally fall into the trap of beating myself up too afterwards. Like if you don't get something crossed off. But meanwhile, I got done all these other things out my day. But I don't
Totally.
even think about that. So I had to like go back and like I use the erasable pens, like I said. So I'll go back and erase and put what I actually did and cross that off. Cause sometimes like things come up and you may need to focus on that right then and there, and you may have that desire to fulfill it right then and there, but like the things that you had to put on hold, like I tried to not beat myself up about it because I did get a lot done. I did get a lot accomplished. So I love both of your points with that because I'm definitely the type of person where I gotta check it off to feel some type of something like that completion, like man, like I got something done. But then if if I'm looking at it and I'm like, nothing's crossed off, but like I'm so tired. What did I do today? You know what I'm saying? So I
Mhm.
totally get it. So
Yeah.
the next one is, how will this impact my life? You know? So it's like if we think about, if we are in the present moment, we can't think about the past at this point. The past is in the past, but what I can do from this moment forward, I can change my future. I can redirect or change my trajectory. So in this aspect of your life, like how would this impact my life? Is it going to be like a negative? Is it not going to matter at all? Is this going to put me towards my goal? When you're being intentional, I feel like this is something that you should ask after you figure out, like, do you have the desire, or why do you have the desire to fulfill it? So how about this question?
Yeah, I remember. I mean, the thing that jumps to mind for me was I was a teacher for many years, and that was my profession, and I taught at different capacities for over a decade, and so it was that was professionally that was all I knew. But I also knew that I wanted to explore other opportunities and kind of stretch my like career trajectory to be doing something different. And I remember I had an opportunity. This was before the job that I have now, but I had an opportunity to take a job that was not teaching. And I just remember feeling like a lot of fear at the time because it wasn't comfortable. I, didn't know if I was going to be able to be successful. I had never worked in like a larger company setting. All my experience had been in the classroom. And I remember thinking about this question a lot at the time, like, but how is this going to impact not just the short term feeling that I might have of discomfort, but how is it going to have an impact on the rest of my life and the opportunities that it's going to open up for me down the road, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Um, there's this great quote, and I sometimes I feel like people say, oh, it's a Bill Gates quote, or other names get thrown out, but who knows who said it. But it's this quote that I think a lot of people they underestimate, sorry, they overestimate what they can do in 1 year, but they underestimate what they can do in 10 years. And so I'm trying to have that 10-year perspective. And so I wound up taking this job that I didn't know, like, is this the right thing? And truth be told, it wasn't the best job in the world. Like, I didn't love it, but it opened up some opportunities for me so that now I can, the job that I have now where I work with Shade and you were a student there at Pastoring, like, and which is a job that I love. Like, I feel like it was opened up and by taking this shorter term opportunity, and to me, like, being able to see how the impact could ripple out that way, it was important to me. It was very powerful.
Yeah, I really like that. Yeah. I feel like Autumn, you want to say something. I don't want to interrupt.
Oh no, you can go ahead.
That's so funny. As you were talking, Anthony, I was just thinking to myself, like, wow, I need to take that 10-year approach or just think about that a bit more, because you definitely do try to push so much into like the immediate future, and then you get bogged down when you don't feel like you're accomplishing things. But um I think for me, like, maybe I've always kind of tried to think of how things will impact my life before I do it. But not as much as I should. Like, I feel like that should be a question that I ask, like, in the grand scheme of things, like bigger picture, and even just the finer details, in my day to day. Because for me, on the personal side, like, I find myself sometimes just overcommitting to things, not because I don't want to, but not because I do want to commit to things. I want it to be social, but I noticed, like, as I've gotten older, that, like, I need a balance between, going out, being social, and resting. And of course, we're in a pandemic too, so, like, I've been forced to be an introvert. But I'm just realizing, like, sometimes it's like it's good to say no, even if I can say yes, because of the impact it might have on my life. You know what I mean? Or like, or I'm thinking, like, what kind of impact am I looking to forward? Like, am I looking to have, next weekend? Like, what kind of like life do I want to have next weekend? Okay, and if I want to have that kind of life, I need to say no to these things so I can have that kind of life, even though I want to do these things. Does that make sense? I feel like I have like Friday brain. I'm just like I'm in different realms.
No,
Oh my god. Okay, cool.
that's
That's
totally
good.
perfect. No,
Hmm.
like even when you're not being intentional, this is just a question that you should just ask. Like before, this is the difference between reacting and responding. Is saying, how will this impact me? So I totally get where you're coming from, and with you, Anthony, like in terms of the 1 year, everybody's like, oh, this year I'm gonna do X, Y, Z, X, Y, Z. And then it's just like in 10 years, they're like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to get to my goals. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it. But yeah, like if you think about it, there are multiple companies that 10 years ago were just babies, infants, and
That's a
just
good
startups.
point.
And now they're like taking over the game. I think about the impact that Instagram and other social media platforms have on our life when 10 years ago, 20 years ago, this was not a thing.
Mm.
Yet people utilize it every day. So yeah,
Mhm.
like I love that.
That's powerful.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So the next question is, which actions do I take initially? A lot of people try to go for the big step, like you said. So this was like a great segue in terms of the year versus the 10 year. If we look at the bigger picture, we can see like what actions are. I like to say the next best thing. Like, what's your next best step to make instead of trying to overwhelm yourself? Because I used to overwhelm myself like it was nothing. I'll be like, I'm getting 7 things done today. And instead of just saying, you know what, I didn't have this done last week, you know what I'm saying? So why try to cram it all in this one day? Like, spread it out and at least you'll get there. What's your 3 week goal? What's your 3 month goal? And then just, keep going that way. But I want to hear from you guys. Like, what do you think about which actions do I take initially?
No, I love that approach. I think with me, I try to think about like, okay, what are the small wins
Hmm.
that I can start to accumulate early on? Because I'm a big believer in, creating positive momentum in oneself, and then letting that kind of build and build and build until you sort of feel like you can become just almost like surfing your own wave of positive momentum. And but it's tough because, to your point, if you start off with a super big goal and then you don't hit it, or maybe you feel like you failed, well, that you take a serious negative hit from that, and that can really stunt your growth, or any positive energy that you might be building up. So personally, I like to think about, okay, what are the small things I can do in the beginning, and the small wins that I can accumulate that will put me in a position to do something a little bit bigger later on. And for me, a big part of that, at like, say, just the start of any day, is I like to, like, as much as possible, just focus. And so if that means like I'm just going to have two internet windows open, or two tabs open, and like I'm just going to focus on these two things, and I can like close everything else out, that's something that's small that I feel like I can do at the beginning of the day, that just sets a nice tone for the rest of what's going to happen.
Man, it's funny that you say that, because like they even created like tab folders for people like me who have all their tabs open. So yes, like that's great. When you said it, I was like, man,
Mm.
like that's me. I'll have like 13 tabs open, like, so I want to get these done. And then like I have like 30 tabs open and only got done five. And then be like, man, still beating myself up. So yes, I totally understand that.
And just to add to the focus thing, like I've noticed that like pings and notifications, they just distract me like crazy. So when I'm working, just to add to what Anthony was saying, like I don't even have my Slack sound on anymore. I just noticed that like your sound, your eye, like there's so many um
The
senses that
sensory,
are being,
yeah, hmm,
yes, so the
yeah,
sensory overload.
the
So I just
sensory
like,
rest.
it's crazy. So like I mute any sound from my computer. So I only like use my eyes to see that somebody has sent me something on Slack, and that helps me focus like crazy. But to answer your question about like what do I initially do, I think my first step is just visually, it's a visual step. I need to see what I'm working towards, and it needs to go somewhere for me to actionably work towards it. And for me, that just looks like putting the task or the goal I want to achieve in my life, and like whether that's in my like in my like calendar, or even like putting it out there to my friends to be like, I want to do this next year. I'm saying this out loud, so it's out there, so it's audibly heard, so that somebody can keep me to it. You know what I mean? Or I put it in my calendar. And then for me, like what I've learned recently, especially from working at Pathstream, is to like check in on yourself, check in on my goals. Like, is it still relevant? Do I still want to work towards it? Like, have I changed? You know what I mean? Like, what's now important to me? Um, that's just something that I've learned, and like that's just, even I feel like that even applies to to life, like friendships, and even just like social commitments. And even like with work too. Like I noticed that sometimes I have like a task and I just kind of head down. I'm just doing it like very robotically, and so I always I put a check in for myself for things that I do regularly. Like, does it still make sense to do it like this? Like, can we change it? And I think a lot of that I've learned from Pathstream, because we experiment a lot. Like we do a lot of testing because we want to see what works. And I'm like, well, this really applies to everything in life, right? Like if I want to make a goal that, let's say somebody wants to make like a body goal and you want to work out more, or you want to lose a certain weight or something, like it's important to keep checking in, because you don't know how your body is reacting to that goal, or you don't know like what you need to change so that maybe you can enjoy the process of getting to that goal better, like more, or change it so that it fits with where you're at this current moment, you know?
I love that. I love that. Like leave room for change, because a lot of people feel like feel the need to just complete it just because they said that they were going to do it. And it's just like you can just take a break and
Mm-hmm.
really reevaluate where you are in life, because when you made
Mm-hmm.
that goal, you were probably somewhere on a different path, and maybe things that like the pandemic like, you know what I'm
Yeah.
saying, like
Mm-hmm.
once you hit that wall, because it turned into hey everybody, we're going on spring break, to you know what, stay another week, to you know what, let's stay for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
So you know, there was a lot of reevaluating going on for businesses, for people, you know, in general. So I love that flexibility of just allowing room for change. That's awesome. And then lastly, going or tying right into it, after you figure out the actions that you take initially, like what are the resources do I need to get started? Trying to check in on like, hey, I know what I need to do. Now, what do I need in order to do it? So, um, but I just want to hear your take on that.
Yeah, I think what jumps to mind for me is time. Like I feel like time is one of the most valuable resources, and so always have to ask myself, like, did I have I realistically set aside enough time for me to be able to focus on whatever it is that I'm trying to accomplish? Because to me, like, there's a direct connection between the amount of time that I have and the amount of focus that I'll be able to feel. So if I only have like an hour chunk, but I know that I have something, you know, a meeting right before, or a meeting or an appointment right after that hour, it's going to be really hard for me to focus, even if it's a task that might only take an hour long. Like, it's if I feel like I've got something that is looming in the future, it's hard for me to feel like I have the amount of focus that I need to get something done. So, you know, for me personally, if I know I have an hour long task, I might like to put that in a 2 hour chunk so that I just don't feel that same pressure. And, you know, I have the space to just kind of relax and think through the problem at the pace that I like to think through it at. So for me, yeah, the biggest resource that I'm always looking for is time. So I like to be super intentional with how I schedule my day or how I block off my calendar, because I know that I might need a little bit of extra time to be able to kind of get something done.
Love that. Yeah, I think it's funny when I was thinking about like when it comes to work too, like I noticed that even just the prep time, there's a prep time and then there's meeting time. So you have to prep for the meeting and then maybe you have to like have another time to close up the meeting. So I couldn't agree more with that time aspect for resources because I feel like it plays into everything because then you make the time to figure out what resources you need before you can get started. And yeah, I find that like being prepared, like prepping for something is really the most. I'm just noticing how critical it is. Like my mom, she's retired and she has a daycare in our house. And whenever I come over and she's got all these kids and they're just to me, they're all just crazy. I'm just like these kids have so much energy. Like how is she maintaining it? But I just noticed it's like she's just walking on clouds. She's just gliding through. It's so easy and like everything is structured and it's because she preps the night before and in the morning because she knows exactly what they're going to eat. She's got it placed out somewhere and it's just like she's walking on air, honestly. Whereas like for me, these kids are just like they have so much energy. I don't know how she's containing it. So like every now and then I'll go and like volunteer with her and just help her and watch her sensei moments because it's just impressive. And I think I couldn't agree more. Like the time that she puts into prepping for those kids, it like directly plays into the time that allows her to enjoy it, those moments even more because she's so prepared. So I feel like I'm learning something here in terms of what resources would I take is definitely the time aspect.
Awesome, awesome. Yes, time is definitely a valuable resource. And there's a 1320 frequency, and it says that time is art. So I'm glad that you brought this up
Nice.
because it goes right into the whole point of rest art, because it's rest time.
Mm. Hmm.
A lot of people say time is money, but time isn't money. Time is art. Like when people go through the motions of hustling and bustling, they can tire themselves out more than just easy going. And I used to envy people who just had that laid back spirit and just like, hey, it'll happen. Meanwhile, I'm like, no, this has to happen this way. Oh no, this goes this way. No, and then I'm sitting here, like literally, like anxious. I'm going through so much. Like that feeling where your blood starts boiling up, and I'm going through
Yeah.
all this, and meanwhile they're just sitting there like, yep, it'll get done, and it does. But your path or the person's path to get there, when I'm talking to my fiance, she
Mhm.
can literally be like, okay, like, like take your time, it's okay. And then I'm sitting here like, let me work with my breathing exercises. But it's just time is something that we can't get back. Like money comes,
Mm.
money goes, but time, once it's gone, you can't get it back. And people say like, I'll make time or I'll spend time, but how do you make or spend time? Time is just
Mm.
time. And the way that I choose my time is to create art. And when my art, or when I leave this earth, I'll have my art here to, that will, you know be to the end of time. That's infinite, so I believe, because think about it, time was here before we got here, and it will be here after we leave.
Right.
Um, uh, like you, Anthony, like with the music, the poetry, everything, and then today, like with you, and your fashion skills, like you both have art, like what I'm saying. You both create,
Mm.
you both design, and
Mm.
we are called to create in our own way. I'm a firm believer in God, Jesus Christ, and the first thing that he did was tell us that he was creative. He could have chose to do anything else, but he chose to tell us that he was creative. In the beginning,
Mm.
God created. So I challenge you and I challenge our listeners, when we get up in the morning, I have a alarm on my phone that says create something awesome today.
Mm.
Create something awesome today. Doesn't matter what you do, just create something awesome today. That's how I choose to make or spend my time. So I love the fact that you guys brought up time. It went right into what I was trying to get to.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it's cool too. I think when you get in that flow state and you're doing something artistic or you're doing something creative too, a lot of people will talk about, the time just flew by, or I lost my sense of time when,
Mm.
just totally we're getting into that level of engagement. So that's cool too when you find yourself like getting into the zone or getting into that flow, how time feels different. So it's a
Mm.
cool experience, and I bet, as an artist, you experience that when you're like really engaged with what you're making.
Right,
Mhm.
right. Yeah. It
Right.
reminds me of the cartoon Soul, like when you were talking about
Yes.
that place.
So good.
Like when you just go there, it's really a great place to be. So
Mm.
yeah, I love that. I love all those points.
Mhm.
What I like to do is just close out with a performance. So normally, I would go ahead and do the Restart one, but I remember us talking about Golgotha on Past Stream. So once I grab my breath, I'll go ahead and do that one for you. All right. Oh, do you remember this by any chance when I was talking about Golgotha?
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. So I was looking for someone to save me and show me the light, but shade is what they gave me. And it's all right. I should have did it all differently. But I was a human being, human mentally, relying on the physical instead of the spiritual. I seek words of affirmation from those without power of salvation or a solid foundation for me to cope. I fell down mountains of high hopes, the valleys of misery, the journey of mystery to victory, over my battles to cut the head off the rattle snakes, the fakes, with my Achilles heel to heal the vulnerabilities and deal with insecurities. He paid my fees for me to be free from the baggage I carry to carry on life with prosperity and generosity. I should have fought the curiosity. I could have listened to my family. I would have been further on my journey. Shoulda, coulda, woulda, but I ain't. He gives a second wind to the faint. I don't know the meaning of can't because I can do all things. Through Christ, I fly high in the sky like eagle wings. In a world full of chickens getting grilled by Hell's Kitchen. I walk by faith, not by sight. At times it gets dark at night, so I fight with temptation that can lead to my demise. It comes by no surprise if you wake up and realize the grass ain't greener on the other side.
Hey.
Snap.
Love it.
Lyrical.
It.
Love it.
Yep.
Lyrical.
So, as I told you guys before, that piece was about my what I thought was my destruction, and I came out like being resurrected, and is just a piece that ties into Restart because I was able to get a restart from it. So I thought it was also fitting to do it here. But any last uh, comments or any last words of inspiration to our viewers?
Yeah, I mean, just thank you so much for having us on. I think, I think the message is a super important one of just, how do you kind of recharge yourself? How do you, take care of yourself? How do you find the time to be creative and re-energize yourself? And so I think the techniques that you've laid out are awesome. The questions that you are asking us and encouraging the listeners to ask themselves are great questions. So yeah, just kudos to you. I think this is a great thing that you're doing.
Thank you.
And likewise, I was just gonna say, and I it's funny because I see restart, but then you kept saying rest art, and I'm like, wow, that's brilliant, right? Because it is like restarting. You need to rest, and then you create, through art and your own ways of creating. So, if anything, I'm motivated to go rest now and create through my resting. So thank you so much for inviting us and for sharing a piece of your art too at the end. Yeah, this is great. More snaps.
Thank you. I appreciate you coming on with me. You guys are the first to be on the podcast, so I'm excited for that because the interview with Pasturing was my first interview. So, this was very special for you guys to be the first. So I appreciate you coming on here, and this is as helpful for me as it is to the listeners because hearing your perspective on the things that I created really helps me to continue to develop and do it. So I really thank you guys for being on here, and that's it.
Awesome. Yeah, it was definitely our pleasure.
Awesome.
Yes, likewise. And I learned from both of you. So this is a great podcast to be part of. Thank you.
All right.
Cool.
See you later.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Take care, guys. Bye.
All right, guys. So I had a great interview today with Sajay and Anthony. Sajay was amazing. Anthony was amazing as well. I hope you guys got a lot from them. Remember, be intentional. First step is it's not that hard. You know, we talked about why do I desire to fulfill this? Why? What's the why? Ask, why do I desire to fulfill this? How will this impact my life? So, why do I desire to fulfill this? How will this impact my life? Which actions do I take initially? Not everything at one time. What do I take initially? Last one. What resources do I need to get started? We all need resources. We talked about time. Time is a very, very, very precious commodity. Time. Imagine other different resources. It's up to you. Are you going to be intentional?